Driver, start your engine! In the beginning, stock cars outran the police to deliver the hooch to our ancestors. So sweet. Are you ready for a trip down victory lane, where Richard Petty's winnings were insane and Dale Earnhardt put everyone to shame? Canadian Junior Handley is in the Hall of Fame. Live from Haldeman County, it's time for the Driver in Deep podcast. Are you ready?
Welcome everyone to the Driver in Deep podcast, brought to you by wingnutsports.com. Today's episode is brought to you by weathertech.ca. I'm sure you've all heard how great WeatherTech laser-measured floor mats are, and I for one can tell you that they're worth every penny.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever tried to get the salt stains from over the winter out of your carpet? With WeatherTech, you don't need to, because they cover the front, back, and the sides of your floors, and even in the cargo area if you happen to have an SUV.
Yeah, I have a dog and kids. I can tell you that none of them care about bringing mud or dirty snow or anything else into the car. Speaking of dogs, my Boston Terrier, Echo, loves to go for car rides, but I hate it when I get paw prints all over my seats. And WeatherTech also sells awesome seat protectors that I just discovered, and I don't have one yet, but I did just order it.
Oh, nice. Not only that, they have, from what I can tell, the best pet feeding systems on the market, cup and desk phone holders, and even cleaning supplies.
Yeah, as you can tell, we both love WeatherTech, so they really are the perfect sponsor of the Driver in Deep podcast.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mark.
I said pardon?
I know, that may be a first.
Well, maybe if they rename the Leafs to the Toronto WeatherTechs, we'd agree more often, Alex.
You would like that. Listen, be sure to check out weathertech.ca and be sure to use promo code DIDpodcast when you check out.
Yes, that's weathertech.ca, and we thank them for sponsoring the Driver in Deep podcast. So speaking of weather, Alex, the weather is getting a lot nicer here in southern Ontario. However, the lockdowns and restrictions that we have because of COVID right now don't seem to be going away.
No, they're not for sure. But like you said, Mark, the weather's getting nicer and definitely better days are ahead for sure.
Yeah, and you know what that means. Nicer weather to get out there and play a little disc golf. How's your game there, Nags?
That's pretty good. We've only been out, well, as you know, twice with you, once with once with my wife after that. So only a few times, but Sandy's been out twice now, once with you and Joni and once with me alone. And she really likes it. She has her own discs now, so she's kind of like you, except she doesn't have a bag. So far, so good. How's your game?
Well, I have a little backpack. I don't actually have a disc golf bag yet.
You will.
That could be. Well, I don't have enough discs to carry in one of those great big disc golf bags at the moment.
I'm sure you will have enough of them too.
Yeah, well, right now, I haven't been out yet this week. I've been pretty busy with, work-related things. The weather's getting great, though, so maybe tomorrow. I don't know. What are you up to tomorrow? I think we're allowed to hit the disc golf course.
Yeah, it's one of the few things we can do.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe we'll get out.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of nice weather and golfing, how's the Sabres doing?
Well, they're right now probably getting the tee times for the Leafs arranged so that they can meet them out on the golf course anytime now. Actually, they've been winning. What's going on here? Points in the last 5 games, 3 out of 4 wins, okay. So maybe Philly isn't a great team, but the Rangers, they smoked the Rangers.
The Rangers are up and down like a toilet seat,
well,
man. They're not even going to make the playoffs. They're going to be sellers.
But then the Rangers go and beat Pittsburgh 8-4. So you tell me, I don't know. I can't really get a good read, to be perfectly honest.
Your division's hard to read because you whine and cry about all the other divisions.
No, I don't. Only yours.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many bad teams in the division that Buffalo's in. You don't even know who's going to win from one night to another because it's 8-4 blowouts, 8-1, and then the next night it's the other way around. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, my pick is the Islanders. The Islanders are going to win out in that division, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's the only team in that division. Boston's iffy.
Well,
anyways, you know what?
We're not going to talk about the AAA North division, though, are we?
Not even talking about it.
Okay,
We're just
good.
talking hockey here.
That's good. That's good.
Listen, one thing about Buffalo fans, if the Leafs get out of the North Division, the Buffalo fans are going to get a chance to see some real hockey because the Leafs will be playing out of the Sabres arena.
Well, you know what then? I'm going to go and I'm going to put a loony under center ice for good luck. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Because they're going to need it. They're going to need it. I mean, with the, who knows what's going to happen, but let's just hope the playoffs are good. And I'm going to be nice, so we'll just leave it at that. And enough about us. Today, we're pleased to have, for the first time ever, fellow podcasters joining us. Cam, K, and Graydon Bunn of the brand new Stickers N Scufs podcast will be with us today.
Yeah, as you know, we've been thinking about doing some crossover with some other podcasts, and it hasn't really worked out timing-wise, but it's great to have these guys on with us. They're close to us geographically. They talk about the same sport. They're great guys. We're going to learn a little bit about their journey so far and see what they have cooking.
Yeah, hang on. Before we get to them, though, I just wanted to give a shout-out to your nephew, Carson. He's been killing it in iRacing lately, and I don't know if he's driving with the top drivers in iRacing or not. You probably know a little more than I do, but he's winning some races and doing really well. So just want to give him a shout out and say, way to go, Carson, and keep it up, buddy.
Absolutely.
Okay, Alex, so we have Graydon and Cam with us now. And before we introduce them, I just want to say that I've really enjoyed listening to their podcast. Their new podcast venture seems real exciting to us. And I know they're huge race fans. And I'd like to welcome you both to the Driver and Deep podcast, guys.
Thanks a lot, Mark and Alex. Happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome, boys, and glad you guys could join us. I haven't had the pleasure to meet Cam yet, I don't believe, but I have met Graydon and his family. I think the first time we met you and your family, Graydon, was around 2014 or 15 at Kawartha during a rain delay when I was with NASCAR.
Yeah, that's right. That was probably the best worst case scenario for a race, honestly. We came, Kawartha's not too close to us, 2.5 hours or so, came down. The weather wasn't the best, but we got put inside the building for the autograph session, which turned out to be, in terms of my children, probably the pivotal moment where they were hooked completely on the series, being put into the building with all the drivers and teams, and really it was just mingling. It wasn't your traditional autograph session and them walking around with, at the time, little baby Hudson Hathaway and Chase Kennington. It was, everybody was just all put in there together, and it was something that they'll never forget, and certainly as a dad, I'll never forget it either.
Yeah, we had nowhere to go. It was pouring down outside. We were locked in the room there. I think it was about 99.8% humidity, but it was good.
Very.
Well, this is kind of a first for us. I guess we're actually both podcasting at the same time, so I'm wondering who's going to ask the questions, you guys or us. No, I'm just kidding. But feel free to ask away, guys, if you have anything. But in the meantime, I'm curious, how did you guys meet each other, and then how did the podcast come about?
For us, actually, the funny story is, Mark, we actually haven't met. We haven't met at all.
Not face to face at all?
Not ever.
Not once. No, this has been a completely through social media story, really. During the past year, we and maybe even a bit into 2019, there was a lot of communication with us. I do a lot of Pinty series fictionals and car fictionals and post them on social media. And Graydon was one of the guys who always was commenting on every single one. And it was funny. We, would constantly communicate back and forth, and he was always so positive. And I was just like, you know what? This guy is pretty awesome. So I had taken radio back in high school, radio broadcasting, and it was only a grade 11 class. So I didn't continue it, but I always wanted to do a podcast. So I threw it out on social media one day. It was just like, what would be fun? It would be fun to have a podcast to talk about racing. And if I had a co-host, I'd want it to be Graydon Bunn, right? And that caught the attention of Mike Sullivan from racecanada.ca, and he basically reached out to both of us and offered us an opportunity to, if we wanted to have a show that he would host it on his site.
And a little deeper to that, it was kind of pitched probably about a year or so, I would say a little over a year ago, where I sort of initially, I hemmed and hawed over it and declined initially just due to, in my work, I'm an equipment operator, but I'm also a landscape designer, and the job that we were doing at the time was, basically the pinnacle of, it was a career job for me. So I didn't want to commit to the podcast thing unless I was doing it 100% with all of my spare time effort type thing. And so once we got into this pandemic thing especially, we needed something fun to do. And for the reasons like you said, Alex, when we were all put in that building where, and time again since, the drivers and people in the industry have done so much for us, but like hooking us up with their gear that really just cost them money. I offered to pay for it and everything, and these guys just want us to be there. And we're so thankful for that we wanted to give something back. And this kind of became our avenue, that especially in a time like this where we kind of had the rug yanked out from under us, especially after 2019, which was such an awesome season. And it felt like we were really building on something that we were kind of knocked down from circumstances beyond our control. And this is kind of our way to help keep a focus on these teams and drivers, and like you guys too, we're all trying to pull in that same direction and keep a spotlight on these guys when the fans can't be at the track, and sponsor activation can't be what it's supposed to be, and it's already tough enough as it is that way too, guys. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, it's so just Cam.
Mm-hmm.
I have met Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Me?
Your relationship, your relationship might be best if you guys just never meet, because you probably heard me and Mark going at it. And so I'm already tired of the guy. So I think just keep your relationship like it is. If you're at a racetrack together, stay in separate ends, because you guys are rocking. And if you meet each other, if it's anything like Mark and I, it could be over. So, but speaking of that, it's kind of funny, right? So we both groups start this deal probably because of the pandemic. Like you, Mark's wanted to do a podcast. He's approached me about it. Then, the pandemic, and I don't care what you say, despite how many times you try to plan or change plans, you still have more time in your hands. So I guess for us, we don't want this to stop and the pandemic's over. We hope you guys don't, because we love to listen to you. But it's kind of funny how, we both kind of started the same way for the same reason. Two guys in each group that I think are kind of like the odd couple. And I get the same feel with you guys, that you're kind of like Mark and I, kind of the odd couple. Am I reading this wrong, or is that the truth?
That's 100% fact. Graydon actually brought that into our new name. Really, it's funny how it became Stickers N Scuffs, and there's actually more to a meaning to that. And Graydon can probably explain it better than I, because he came up with a fantastic kind of explanation for putting the name together.
Well, I was spitballing ideas when Cam and I committed to the idea of just going 100% on our own. And so obviously you got to think of some catchy names. So I was just throwing some ideas out there, and I thought it would be neat, just like Joel remarked on his episode with us, that I think he was the first one that kind of said we were like the odd couple of fan base type guys. And from there, it was always in the back of my mind. So the Stickers N Scuffs one, Cam's a Bay Street guy, works in the city and everything. The late 20s. I'm the almost 40-year-old. Been around a few times, and so it works so well that we're united because of racing. So the tire analogy is a great sort of stock car thing that we brought into it, and it's us.
Yeah, so just like Mark and I, even the ages match up. 40.
Yeah. Nice try, Alex. And I will tell you guys this, and Alex has reminded me of this many times, that the only reason that I'm even here is because of my wife, right?
Yeah, I like his wife. I never liked him. I think I told you, Graydon, both of them worked for us at the racetrack, and Joni worked for me in the office in her first year and a bit, and great girl. Her and my wife became friends, and kind of just inherited Mark. So here we are.
Just bring your husband to work day or something.
Yeah. So they knew that I was working here too. Felt sorry for him.
Yeah. Well, and the truth is that even though Alex and I have different experiences in life, I think we do have a lot in common in the sense that we're both very competitive people. You know, we're both type A personalities, and we don't like it when things aren't done right. So I think that kind of drew us together in the beginning, and it turned into something here. So we have fun with it. I think we're still working on getting better. And for me, starting the podcast, it's been such a great experience, but what I didn't really expect was how many amazing people that I'd be able to meet through doing this podcast from the beginning up to now, including you guys. And, and that's been the best part of it, is meeting people that I never would have otherwise probably met and hearing some of their stories. So I feel privileged to be part of that and to get to hear that on a regular basis. So anyway, let's get kind of back on track here a little bit. You guys do something a little different than us, and your focus is on the NASCAR Pinty Series primarily. Was that your plan from the start? Is that what you're going to continue with, or did you just kind of morph into that?
How it really started was I had started a YouTube channel, KMK Racing. I was just kind of doing post-race talks by myself, and then when this opportunity came about, we're talking with Graydon. We initially didn't know what we were going to cover. If we were just going to cover all NASCAR, but there was one thing that really we both loved more than I think any other type of racing, and that's the NASCAR Pinty Series, formerly Canadian Tire Series, formerly CASCAR. I grew up, and we didn't have money to go down south to watch racing. Didn't have the money to really go out and go to crazy vacations. We didn't even get that type of opportunity. But what we did do, and what my dad did, is he didn't realize at the time that taking me to my first race at Mosport Speedway, the Oval, and it was, I don't know what it was. It was a super stock race, but if he had known the monster that he was creating by taking me to that first race, and to think of all the money that they've spent on diecast and NASCAR memorabilia for me since then, you don't forget your first race. The first race I went to go see was the CASCAR Super Series race, and I felt as if I was seeing NASCAR at home, and it was the coolest experience for me. I still remember who sat on the front row, Dave Whitlock and Mark Dilley. I still remember the size of the cars. I remember the looks of them, the tires. I remember Kenny Forth's car backfiring every time it went into turn one. My dad complaining how noisy it was. Well, I was mesmerized, right? And even when we went to Jukasa in 2019, just hearing the cars in the background, it just gets you all excited. I didn't get that sense. I've been to a NASCAR race down south, and it's different. Yep. It's not the same feeling. You don't get to go out on the track, touch the cars, take pictures with the cars, meet the drivers, get an autograph. This series does so much for the fans, and they've done so much for us. Like, they have no idea how much, they did for myself, for Graydon, for his boys, and in seeing that, we want to give back to them. They deserve it, and Canadian racing seems to get forgotten quite a bit. And if we can bring some sort of attention to it, some sponsorship, that would be a dream for us, because we want to see more cars back out on the track. We want to see more of these young drivers get an opportunity in Canada to race, because the product is great. I mean, we were going through the finishes in 2019 the other day, and we couldn't believe how many were like side by side amazing finishes. So it may not have started out that way, and we were still looking, at potentially covering more forms of motorsports. But one thing that always came back to us was the Pinty Series, and I think it's been our goal, Graydon. I would assume, we didn't set up for this, but we're gonna make a goal, and we've kind of had it, to get every single one of the drivers on the podcast this year, and we're pretty close, I think.
We're getting there. Yeah, I think it's it's on us as fans and NASCAR as a whole, whether you're American or Canadian, has beat this drum. It all starts in the grandstands. If the fans aren't there, take 2020 and current away. But I mean, without fan support, the sport collapses on itself. And in a time where everybody's sort of cooped up, this is sort of our great blizzard of 1979, if you will, where everybody's snowed in and looking at the internet. So hopefully we can get some people. There's tons of Americans that definitely rant and rave about the Pinty Series, and it's nice to be able to showcase it a little bit, because the drivers don't actually get enough. And it's not through any fault of production on TV or anything like that, or social media or that. There isn't time to really showcase their personalities beyond their brief victory lane interview and sometimes a post race with whoever wrecked out or blew up or whatever. But this is just kind of our opportunity, and same with you guys, where you can bring these guys in and ladies into the interview and get a sense of who they are as a person, as a parent, and beyond a racer, and that can help attract a company.
And we have learned so much about the drivers, way more than I ever knew them on the race broadcasts. You know, it's kind of hard in an hour-long broadcast every couple of weeks to find out about Chantal Kalika and her story. And I think, you know, just having her, she's an upcoming episode for us, and I never knew anything about her. And after talking with her, I'm like, who would not want to sponsor her? She's amazing. Her personality is awesome. She'd be a perfect brand ambassador. You know, talking with DJ, it's the same thing. You know, you meet these characters and you're like, oh my God, I could put them with that company. I could put them with that company. They would be perfect. Right? So it helps open up just us as hosts, but imagine what that would look like to other companies in Canada, right? Or the United States that would be looking to try and sell their product up here. Now we can actually see those personalities. Down south, you see enough of their personalities, you know? And I think we've kind of talked in the past that they don't cover a lot of the back of the field in the Cup Series, right? That's a lot of the issues that people have, is they only focus on the front runners, where we have a small enough field that we can focus on everybody. And we can give them that opportunity to let their personality shine, then we're going to give it to them.
Well, I can tell you that in marketing, that's called the Pareto principle, where 20% of the drivers probably get 80% of the coverage. And there's a reason for it, obviously, but I hear what you're saying, Cam, and you're right. In trying to get some of the information out about some of the, like you said, back of the field is a little more difficult for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you touched on it. Cam, and yourself too, Graydon, trying to get just more exposure for our sport. I think it's blown Mark away, and even myself to a certain degree, is when we get comments back from people that listen to our podcast that not even race fans, but they either come across it and they say, you know, now I'm paying attention to your podcast because it makes me feel like I'm sitting in the shop with a guy. And I think, like you say, people don't get that experience before. But if they get that experience beforehand, they're more apt to go watch a race for the first time, because they've got that, like you said, they've got that connection prior to, and that's so hard. But yeah, listen, if we all do our little bit of part, our little part, and that helps, our approach is really the same, but so much different, where I guess I'm a race fan, but you guys would have watched somebody like me at some point. And so I look at it differently. So if I can share stories with people, or we can share stories with people that I've had experience with, to me, that's extra cool. The same as what you said, just getting the personal side of people out there. And it's not easy, like you say, but it's easy for us guys to do it.
Well, Alex, you know people, and you know this sport from top to bottom. You've driven, you've managed it, you're running a track, like, you've worn so many hats in this that you can speak to so many different points of view that makes you a great host, and it makes you a great person to talk to about racing. I mean, you can relate to so many different angles of it that's pretty neat in a host. I mean, that's what makes us different. I mean, we're completely outside the industry, and you've worn so many hats in it that's so neat to be able to hear your points of view, your experiences, and how you can relate to something that like fans like us are talking about.
Well, it's funny you say that because, we'd be sitting around a campfire or something with Mark and Joni and Sandy, and I'd be, I'm not one to talk about what I've done, where I've been, but if you have a pop or two, you tend to talk more and loosen up. and Mark would tell me all the time, we got to talk, you got to tell these stories. Like, you're just telling me. And it's, he's not like,
it's lost on me.
Race guy from the start, but he's becoming one. And he's like, you got to tell these stories. And that's why I wanted to do a podcast. So now, trying to get those stories out there. But, so I got a question for you guys. I know you talked about Chantel. Great person for sure. And she's announced now that for sure she's got support in 2022, which is great.
So exciting.
Looking long term like that from that company. Good for them. They're kind of bowing out for 21, but 2022 they're back. So that's awesome. She made the trip over here to Ontario once, and that was great. That's when I first met her. So, besides the pandemic crap, what are some of the interesting storylines for the Pinty series for heading into 2021?
Well, I think the biggest one is the rebuilding. Obviously we can throw the pandemic aside, but we've got a team that is looking exceptionally strong for 2021 and really to 2022 as well. And they've got a great partnership with White Motorsports, talking RGC Sports, TJ Renamato, Mark Dilley. I think we can all say that maybe they've had some struggles the past couple of years, but I really like that commitment, that move. And also partnering up with 22 Racing and bringing in Trayton Lapsevich to drive the 20 for them. That's, not only that they've got that team, but White Motorsports has their own car on top of that with JF Laverge and Donald Teach.
Yeah.
And that is a lethal combination with all those drivers, all those veterans coming together on a team. I can't see them having a bad season. And we saw a ton of speed out of White Motorsports. They just didn't have the finishes in 2020 that I think we know that they're capable of. So for me, I don't know what Graydon thinks, but that's definitely my biggest stories to follow on.
Whitey's tripling down, see what he can do with the triple threat this year.
So one thing, you said a couple minutes ago about being in different parts of the sport for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what both you guys are saying. But I can also tell you this, just because you get 3 teams doesn't mean it's easy and it's replicated easy. And listen, good for Whitey, and I'm sure he'll do a great job. I hope he does. Wish them a bunch of success. But man, I think Cam, being a race fan, you don't know how they can't succeed. I can tell you, man, it's such a fine line that they could not do. It's possible they couldn't get out of their own way. And I'm only saying that not to be negative, because I had stuff in the line a ton of times too. And sometimes it's like when you get everything in line, you think you got the world by the you-know-what, and it never happens. So I'm not saying that's going to happen to those guys. Mm-hmm. Bunch of great people like yourself. I'm excited to see where that goes too.
Mm-hmm. We talked about having so many great guests on each of our shows so far, and I'm sure that you guys have enjoyed every guest as much as we have. But has there been any guest that sticks out for each of you?
I have to say DJ for a few reasons, because he was our first show, he was our first guest, and when we started this thing, I started kind of finding out how many quote-unquote like acquaintances that are more than just acquaintances after going to the races for a few years, and DJ probably more than anybody has gone out of his way to just be buddies, and I can't thank that guy enough for what he's done for us and just like hanging out with the guy. So I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm personally invested in that guy. Like, I like, how can you not be fans of these people? Like, you talk to any of these guys for 5 or 10 minutes and you want more. So then you end up kind of hanging out and talking. Before you know it, I know, like, the guy sent me his phone number because I kept DMing him probably too much on here. Just text me, and he's like, I'll get back to you or whatever. But I mean, that's the kind of people these guys and girls are this series, that you come for the racing and stay for the friendship. That's a long-winded answer, but I would have to say DJ, for my personal standpoint, and as a dad, my kids love The Crew, the sitcom that came out. My kids are what that show, the target. They're young race fans. They love to laugh, and having Dan Adoot and Jeff Lowell on the show was probably a personal highlight for them. And just as a dad, seeing them laugh when Dan was cutting up on the recording and everything. So there's a couple for you. I think those were probably the standouts.
That's great. Now, Cam, you've had a couple of minutes to think about this. What do you think?
Well, again, it's easy. Like you said, I can't even believe that we've had some of the guests that we've had on. I come from a completely different side of things, I think, than Graydon. You know, I'm not somebody that was camping in the infield, and I didn't get to be well known with a lot of them. But the amount of respect and just appreciation that all of these guests have shown to me, as somebody, just as a bit of a background, I have massive anxiety, social anxiety, and would never have been able to talk to them face to face. And the fact that they were able to be so, like, it's easy to be very afraid of guests, you know, because they seem so big and scary when you're going to go up and say hi. And even though I had seen DJ since I was, 10 years old, it was still very scary, to talk to him. The biggest guest for me personally was Alan Bestwick, an idol of mine. Like, I wanted to be him. I had to have my die-cast cars set up on the kitchen table. I'd play every night and pretend I was Alan Bestwick calling the races.
Still?
Yeah, still, absolutely.
Awesome. That's great.
That's why I have a cabinet full of die-casts that I can do and put on proper races. But it was hard not to get choked up talking to him and seeing him on camera. Like, it just, you don't realize, like, and you don't realize until it's actually happening, how, as horrible as this whole situation has been, how lucky and how gracious stuff has come to us. Like, I never expected that we would ever in our life be able to get some of the guests that we have had. And it just seems crazy. Even the fact that we're on this podcast.
Yeah.
Buddy, I was just going to say, how do you think me and Mark feel with you two guys tonight?
Yeah.
We're totally intimidated.
Oh.
We're guests on someone else's podcast is a trip in itself.
That's awesome. I think it's we've talked about doing this before, me and Mark. I think we said that off the top, but to me, this is the best way to start it out. I mean, we've crossed paths, we've been at the same events. I've met Graydon and his family a few times, and so I think it's a natural fit. But listen, we focused on the Pinty series a bunch here during this interview, which you're absolutely right. Great series, great guys, great girls. Absolutely. As you know, I invested a bunch of time there, and I was fortunate to work with that group. So yeah, absolutely. Besides that, what type of racing, what other series, what's out there right now, even if you stick with our area, what excites you right now besides that?
We have so much invested in the series down south now. Like, we have guys like Raphael Lessard, and again, we keep circling back to the pandemic, and I don't want to keep doing that, but the fact that, like, these kids are pretty young still, like, Lessard's moved down and kind of started his life at a pretty young age trying to make a career for himself, where he can't have the actual physical backup of having his family come down to visit him as often or hardly ever. I don't know what their basis is, but it's not normal anyways. So we have a lot to cheer for down south. So we're very invested in the truck series this year. Same with the Xfinity series with Alex LeBay, Josh Williams, the honorary Canadian. We're big DGM guys. So I'm a fairly devoted stock car guy. I stick around, honestly, full disclosure, I stick around for Cup because I've pushed it on my kids so much to love NASCAR that even though I don't love the Cup package right now, my kids love it. And we still watch every week. I have a fantasy team and all of that. So that's my angle. Yeah. I'm
kind of all over the place. You can thank Speed Channel for that. Speed Channel was what I grew up with, and it gave me a great exposure to a lot of great racing. One of the ones that I don't know if enough people know, but is one of the best racing series out there is the V8 Supercar Series.
Absolutely.
Absolutely amazing, beautiful cars, fantastic racing. My favorite track in the world, Mount Panorama, is in that series. But if we're talking about close to home, obviously I can't talk about anything more than the APC late model series, Oscar Hot Rod, which has become easily one of my favorite series to watch. And they look like they're going to have a really big car count, hopefully this year. A lot more names coming out. And then, of course, the Superstock series. And that's all thanks to GeForce, because I had not seen really any of those races, but GeForce TV put them on last year. So I got the opportunity to actually watch them. And the racing is fantastic.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think local stuff is just as good, if not better than, the NASCAR Cup Series. I think I'm the same kind of frame of mind as I watch Cup because I kind of have to. Xfinity and trucks is way more. It's still Penny Series above anything. If I got the opportunity, wheel and modified would be up there, but we're kind of limited in what we can see. And then of course the local racing series. And I like my IndyCar, Formula One, all the Road to Indy stuff as well. Because we've got some Canadians in there too, and they put on a great product as well.
Yeah, I'm like you, Cam. I'm all over the place too. Motorcycles, tractor pulls. I mean, anything with an engine. And even stuff without an engine. Me and Mark now are messing around a little bit, watching some Formula E. Friend of mine, Rob
Extreme
Edwards,
E,
he's the CEO of Andretti Autosport. They've got a Formula E team now, so Rob kind of introduced us to that. So we followed that a little bit. It's pretty cool. First event this past weekend. And, our last podcast, we had Luke Ramsey on from APC and talked about some of the things you just said. And we focused a lot on Ontario race. And I kind of felt bad after we got off because it's not just Ontario. It's not just the APC series or the Pinty series, which is nationwide. But man, there's great racing out west. There's great racing in the Maritimes. I have a bunch of friends out there. Man. Quebec, the RS1 stuff. There's great racing all over this country for sure. And for me, that's, anytime I can showcase or pump their tires, I think it's just, we don't talk about ourselves enough. And there's a ton of talent in this country. So, of course, in the U.S. too, all my U.S. friends, but we have a ton of talent in this country, a ton of great series, a lot of great local racing. I work with a bunch of different track operators, owners, promoters, great group of people. So, absolutely.
Well, I have one more question, but I'm going to make it a two-parter since we're talking about Cup. First, what do you guys think of the dirt race at Bristol this year? And the second part of that question is, who's going to win the Cup Championship this year? And I'll start off. Before you start, I'll say that I'm invested, and I know it's not looking great so far, but the number 9 car, Chase Elliott's my guy, and for no other reason that it's number 9 and blue and gold, which is my favorite hockey team. So, and maybe he won last year. That had something to do with it. I don't know. Anyway, who wants to take that question or those questions?
I like the Pinty's truck race on dirt, and I like what I saw out of the Cup race too. Let me say
Too long. Would you agree?
I liked what I saw. That's what I'll say. I think there's some bugs to work out of it. I like a race where, especially to my point earlier, where it puts a lot of the driver ability into play as opposed to their typical where they go now. And fans have been clamoring for blowing the schedule up, and this is something. Yes, it's not a natural. I don't want to say not a dirt track that was built as a dirt track. Yes, it's Bristol, but that said, it was very well done in terms of the construction after all that rain. I'm a heavy equipment operator, road builder. It's neat to see that kind of work, like especially when you're essentially putting dirt on top of concrete, and they were able to make it work, have the surface ready for race day when Cup finally did get to run. So from the track construction point of view, I liked it, and I liked the fact that the race was put in the driver's hands more so than usual. But there are some kinks to work out of it for sure. Race length is for sure one thing to look at.
I thought that's all you were going to say.
That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, that puts a bow on it, really. For the championship, this format makes it so hard. Like, it almost makes the conversation now who's a favorite for the championship, who not really who do you think's going to win. The 9 has to be in the conversation. The 5 is definitely showing strength like he should be in the conversation. I don't know who to really say. I don't want to steal Cam's thunder because I think he was on the Kyle Larson train there, but he makes a pretty good case. I was looking at Chase Briscoe maybe as like kind of a naive fan for 20 plus years, but thinking he might set the world on fire, but he's having a hard time. But I don't think he's alone. The SHR guys just aren't quite up to snuff. But those Hendrick guys look like whatever was wrong with those guys for a couple of seasons, they're working the bugs out of it. So that's my not great answer to that, Mark.
Go ahead, Cam.
They just needed to kick out Jimmy Johnson to be successful. That's what needed to happen.
Oh!
Yeah.
Only 7 championships. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what? I have to say, I'm a very novice dirt fan. I have not seen a lot. Yes, I have to go back to the Speed Channel, being able to see the World of Outlaw stuff that was featured way back when there, and the core off-road trucks. So I do know of dirt racing. I'm definitely a campaigner of not putting it on Bristol, but I also, I hate that Bristol's been what it's been the last 10 years.
Yeah.
They destroyed it, in my opinion, when they did the resurfacing or whatever. And I will never forgive them for that because to me it was the perfect track, in my opinion. And they made a lot of claims about wanting to do more short tracks, and then the one short track they have that's still okay, they dump dirt on top of it instead of going to another dirt track they could have gone to. So aside from that, I was very impressed. I'd say the truck race was a little harder to get through. It was a lot of wrecking. One guy led the entire race. There wasn't really battling for the lead, unlike the Cup race. But what I really did like about the Cup race was that the fact that we did see Eric Almirola and Stuart Friesen fight over spotting, and it caused a wreck. And when would we have seen that in the new Bristol? You don't really see that as much, right? So I like adding that component to it. I think and again, most of the uproar on social media, I don't feel was that it was a dirt race. It's because it was on Bristol. I think you put it anywhere else, and if it was on Dover, it would not have caused as big of an uproar because I don't think the love is there as much for, say, Dover than it is for Bristol. Like, people hold Bristol very, very close to their heart. If I want to see them do it, if they're going to do it again, I would prefer them go to, like, Knoxville or Eldora, just a natural dirt that they know everything that they have to do. You know what? I would personally say go to Ohsweken. That's just my preference, because I'd say go Canada. That's the way to go. But for the championship, I agree with Graydon. I hate the playoffs, and I'll be completely honest with you. I think it's the stupidest kind of way of doing things. It's not hockey. It's not a stick and ball sport. Where else in racing do they do this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the only place that they do it, and they don't reward full season running. They reward the last race of the season. And
I'm not surprised they went that route because they always try things. I guess I'm surprised it's still there.
Yeah,
and
that's a good way to put it.
The stage racing, I
don't
can't
need
do it.
stages for racing. Good. Watch the penny series.
And forget about it on the road courses too.
Shorten the races up. Shorten the races up. Make the package better. But and you know, like you said, Cam, the fact that the trucks weren't any good at Bristol is kind of tells a story right there, because I watched the trucks more than anything in the top tier NASCAR, and it was, like you say, it wasn't good. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean every race is good, but well, I'm looking forward to seeing them on Knoxville, like you said. I think it's going to be a hell of a show. Anyways, you know what? We can't take up your whole night, but I just want to thank you guys. Mark's got something else. Go ahead, Mark.
Cam, did you give us your pick for the Cup champion?
Oh, he was getting there. Come on.
Well, we missed it.
He didn't. Yeah, I bailed him out. He didn't really want to say.
Yeah, I know. I'm not letting you off the hook, Cam.
I did want to say, because frankly, this is going to sound very, very ignorant, but I don't really care, unfortunately.
Hey, that's a good answer.
It's become just. It's like when you go back and Jimmy Johnson won 5 championships in a row during the play. Like, to me, he didn't win 5 championships in a row. He won being the best at Homestead in the final race. And that's just the way kind of that's become. So who's going to be the best at Phoenix wins the championship. And that to me isn't how you win a championship. All that being said, I have to say Denny Hamlin because I feel if I don't, he'll never win it.
Yeah.
He seems overdue, and I'm not even a Denny Hamlin fan, but
That'll be the wife picking him.
yeah. And Kyle Larson, I think is going to be probably the strongest all season. Again, I got to pick Hamlin because I feel like he needs to get that done so that we know it's over. He finally
Yeah, turn the page.
Well, like I said, I started to say there before Mark rudely interrupted. I was trying to help Cam out, buddy, and go and force it on him. But no, hey, Hamlin would be okay. He'd be okay. It's always good to see somebody new, that's for sure. And yeah, like I said, can't thank you guys enough for joining us. It was a real pleasure. On behalf of myself, just continued success with your podcast. Hey, and take a minute here to tell everybody where they can find you guys.
Okay,
where can they listen to your podcast?
Yeah, you can find the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. We're on pretty much all social media. We have a Facebook page. We have a YouTube page. We also have a Twitter at _SNS_pod. We're also on Instagram as Stickers and Scuffs. Just the plain Stickers and Scuffs, no podcast on that there. You can also find me, Cam K Racing, at Cam K Racing on Twitter, as well as Instagram. And Graydon, how can we find you?
I am the one trick pony, Twitter at Smooth Operator with the 88s in it. And, yeah, back to you guys. Thanks very much for inviting the new guys on the block into this. And, this was kind of neat to collaborate and cross over and chat.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a no-brainer. I know Mark wanted to have you guys for different reasons, but whether I race cars or looked for sponsorship or ran a racetrack or whatever I did, the most important thing was fans. And you guys are true fans, most passionate fans. I hope we can get more fans like you two guys. And if you breed some more with your stuff you do, awesome, because fans make the world go around and make our sport happen. So we appreciate it.
And
That's the goal. True
Thank you
Canadian
so
racing fans.
I have to say, Cam and Graydon, you guys are off to a great start, and I hope you guys get the checkered flag. Thanks, guys. All the best to you, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Well, those two guys definitely love racing. We can only hope that we get more and more fans like them. How about you tell our listeners again, Mark, how they can support us?
Sure, Alex. We always tell you to head over to our Facebook page by simply searching Wingnut Sports. But of course, we also have Instagram and Twitter accounts. You can find us on those just by going to @WingnutSports or visit our website at wingnutsports.com. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please take a moment to like our podcast. We would really appreciate it.
This has been the Driver in Deep podcast with your hosts, Mark and Alex. Thanks for listening.
Well, we're wide open sideways. All right, you're clear. Talk is cheap. You're clear on that. We got the foot to the floor. We're gonna drive her in deep.